Julian slammed his glass onto the mahogany table, the amber liquid splashing onto the pristine white marble floor. But his eyes never left Aisha. He watched her with a predator's intensity as she stood there in her faded blue maid's uniform, her shoulders straight despite the weight of his gaze. "Clean it," he barked, his voice cutting through the soft classical music like a serrated blade. "On your knees, Aisha. I want to see my reflection in that floor by the time the first guest arrives." Aisha didn't flinch, but her grip tightened on the cleaning rag in her hand. Julian leaned in closer, the smell of expensive cigars and arrogance radiating off him. "You think because you have a pretty face you can just stand there? You're a servant. Now get down and show me how well you can crawl." With a heavy heart, Aisha lowered herself to the cold stone, the rough fabric of her uniform bunching at her knees. She began to scrub, her movements methodical and humble, while Julian stood over her, laughing with his cruel fiancé Sloane. But as Aisha reached out to scrub a stubborn stain near the center of the hall, her sleeve slipped upward, exposing the skin of her inner shoulder. There, etched in deep, royal pigment, was a birthmark so perfect it looked like a tattoo, a crown encircled by a ring of stars. In the back of the room, the Duke of Eldoria, the most powerful man in the country, dropped his crystal flute. The sound of shattering glass echoed like a gunshot. He didn't look at the mess. His eyes were locked on Aisha's arm, and his face was as white as a ghost. "It can't be," he whispered, his voice trembling. "That mark. That is the seal of the lost sovereign." Julian, oblivious to the shift in the room, raised his foot to nudge Aisha's shoulder, but before his shoe could touch her, the Duke was there, shoving him aside with a strength that defied his age. The Duke didn't offer Aisha a hand. He dropped to both knees on the wet floor, bowing his head until it nearly touched her cleaning bucket. "Princess Amira," he choked out, tears streaming down his face. "We have searched for 20 years. The kingdom is yours." Julian's smirk froze, then shattered into a mask of pure terror as he realized he had just spent the last hour treating the owner of the world's largest fortune like a stray dog. Before we go any further into this incredible story of hidden royalty and the most satisfying revenge you've ever seen, I want to stop and say hello to all of you. It's amazing to have you here. I'm curious, who is watching us today? Please drop a comment below and let me know what city and country you are watching from. I love seeing how far these stories travel. And if you believe that everyone deserves respect and that karma always finds its way home, please take a moment to subscribe to the channel and hit that like button. It really helps us keep telling these powerful stories. Now let's see what happens when a maid becomes a queen and a billionaire loses everything. The atmosphere in the grand ballroom of the estate shifted from festive to funereal in a heartbeat. Julian stood paralyzed, his legs still partially raised as if he were caught in a glitch. He looked from the Duke, a man whose family had ruled the financial world for centuries, to Aisha, the woman he had just called a nobody. Sloane, standing beside him, clutched her pearls so hard the string threatened to snap. "This is a joke, right?" she stammered, her voice high and shrill. "She's just a maid from an agency. That mark is probably a cheap tattoo." The Duke didn't even look at her. He remained on his knees, his eyes fixed on Aisha with a reverence that felt like a physical force. "It is no tattoo," he said, his voice regaining its command. "The royal birthmark of Eldoria is a genetic miracle, passed down through only the direct bloodline of the first queen. It cannot be faked, and it cannot be mistaken." He looked at Aisha, who was still holding her cleaning rag, her dark eyes wide with shock. "Your Highness, do you not remember? The fire at the summer palace? The day the guards took you to the forest to keep you safe?" Aisha felt a sudden sharp pain in her temple. A memory, long buried under years of struggle and survival, flickered like a dying candle. She saw smoke. She felt the cold night air. She remembered a woman's voice, soft and musical, singing a lullaby about stars and crowns. She remembered being told to never show her shoulder to anyone she didn't trust. "My mother," Aisha whispered, her voice cracking. "She told me it was a mark of protection." The Duke nodded vigorously. It was a mark of your destiny. You are the sole heir to the Eldorian Trust. This estate, the banks that hold Julian's debt, the very land this city sits on, it all belongs to you. Julian finally found his breath, though it came out in ragged gasps. Now wait a minute, Duke. Let's not be hasty. Even if she is who you say she is, she's been working as a commoner. She has no training, no standing. We can arrange a transition. I can help her. I've been managing this property perfectly. Aisha stood up. She didn't use the Duke's hand for support. She rose with a natural, fluid grace that seemed to transform her faded uniform into a royal gown before their very eyes. She looked down at the rag in her hand, then dropped it directly onto Julian's expensive leather shoes. You said you wanted to see your reflection in the floor, Julian, she said, her voice cool and steady, devoid of the fear that had been there only minutes ago. Julian blinked, his mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. Yes, no. I was just joking, Your Highness. A bit of workplace humor. Aisha stepped closer to him, and the guests parted like the Red Sea. I don't think it was a joke when you told me to crawl. I don't think it was a joke when you told me I was born to be under your feet. But you were right about one thing. Someone needs to clean this floor. And since you've lived here for 6 months without paying a dime of the actual market value, because you thought you were the owner's friend, I think it's time you earned your keep. The Duke stood up and signaled to the security detail at the door. Men in dark suits moved forward, their faces grim. Julian, the Duke announced, your lease was a courtesy extended by the Trust while we searched for the rightful heir. That courtesy is now revoked. Effective immediately, your accounts are being audited for the embezzlement we've long suspected. And since you love this floor so much, you can stay and finish the job. Sloane tried to bolt for the door, but a guard stepped in her way. My jewelry! She screamed. I have my things in the master suite. Aisha turned to her. You mean the jewelry bought with the company's stolen funds? Or the dresses Julian gave you that were meant for his creditors? Everything in this house stays in this house. You came here with nothing but your arrogance, Sloane, and that is exactly what you will leave with. The guests began to whisper, the sound rising like a tide. Many of them were people Julian had bullied or cheated in his rise to power. Now they watched with grim satisfaction as the man who thought he was a god was stripped of his armor. Julian looked around the room, his eyes wild. You can't do this. I have rights. I'm Julian Vance. The Duke stepped forward, his shadow looming over the smaller man. You are a tenant who has overstayed his welcome and insulted a queen. You have no rights here. The guards grabbed Julian by his arms. He kicked and screamed, his expensive suit tearing as they dragged him toward the center of the hall. They forced him down to his knees, right where Aisha had been standing. The cleaning bucket, filled with gray, soapy water, was placed in front of him. Aisha looked at him one last time. You wanted a reflection, Julian. Look into the water. Maybe you'll finally see who you really are. With those words, she turned her back on him. The Duke draped his own velvet cloak over her shoulders, covering the maid's uniform. He led her toward the grand staircase, and as they climbed, every single guest in the ballroom bowed their head in unison. The music began again, not the frantic classical piece from before, but a slow, triumphant anthem. Behind her, Aisha could hear the sound of Julian sobbing and the frantic scrubbing of a rag against stone. He was finally doing exactly what he had forced others to do, and the world was finally in balance. As Aisha reached the top of the stairs, she looked out over the vast hall that was now hers. She thought of the years of cold mornings, the tired muscles, and the people who had looked through her as if she were invisible. She realized that her power didn't come from the birthmark or the money. It came from the fact that she knew what it was like to be at the bottom. She would be a different kind of ruler. She would be a queen who remembered what it was like to hold the rag. The doors to the royal balcony were thrown open, and for the first time in 20 years, the rightful heir stood before her people. The search was over. The princess had come home, and the man who tried to break her was now nothing more than a memory on a dirty floor. This story shows us that no matter how much power someone thinks they have, they can never take away your true worth. Justice has a way of finding the light, even when it's hidden under a servant's sleeve. I hope you enjoyed seeing Julian get exactly what he deserved. If you want to see more stories where the arrogant are humbled and the hidden heroes are revealed, please make sure you are subscribed to our channel. Don't forget to hit that like button if you think Aisha is going to be an amazing queen. We love having you as part of our community, and we can't wait to share the next journey with you. Thank you for watching, and remember, always treat others with kindness, because you never know who is standing right in front of you. See you in the next video.